You're trying to eat healthier, but you can't seem to figure out what to cook. Maybe you think healthy cooking is too difficult, too much work, or too time consuming. So now you end up doing takeaway or going for the quickest and easiest thing you can get without caring too much if it's going to nourish you and support your goals. You'll try again tomorrow, right? Let me help you fix this endless loop. This healthy food hack is going to teach you how to build healthy and well-balanced meals in 4 easy steps, which will upgrade and simplify the way you cook your meals forever. And for this, the first thing we need to do is get some groceries. You need to understand this. The most healthy foods you can buy are the unprocessed basic foods. So let's start with this challenge. Go and try to only buy basic foods. So only foods that you could grow, catch, or could potentially make yourself if you had the basics. And I'm talking about products like bread, pasta, and legumes from a pot. To be honest, most people overcomplicate healthy eating. We're always trying to find new best diets and recipes. Always trying to find this magic shortcut. When reality is, we just need to stop overcomplicating food and get back to what food should be most of the time. More functional. I really think a big reason why most people tend to overcomplicate food is because they don't know how to eat more functional. Basic nutritional knowledge. Another big reason why people tend to overcomplicate healthy eating is because they've not adapted their mindsets around food. Eating healthy means accepting to eat food because of its functionality most of the time. Now, this doesn't mean that we have to eat food that tastes bad. It just means that we need to strip food back to its more natural form and to eat food because of its purpose, to nourish and sustain you, again, most of the time. I'm being so specific on the words most of the time because a healthy diet consists out of 80 to 90% basic foods and 10 to 20% non-basic foods, or how I like to call them, hedonic deviations. It's never an all or nothing kind of situation. But here's the thing, most people know how to indulge. It's how to eat more functional, what we need to learn. Now that we got our ingredients, let's start building our healthy meal with this basic template of 4 easy steps. Step 1, choose your protein source. You want to build meals with 30 to 50 grams of protein. Setting your protein up to thrive and not just survive is an absolute must for your health and body composition. Protein is used for about every structure in our body. Your gut, your liver, your skin, body cells, but also for enzymes, hormones, antibodies, and even bones. And of course, our organs of longevity and the one tissue that can shape our bodies how we want it, are muscles. My recommendation would be to stick to lean protein sources most of the time. And that is because there are more health risks linked to animal-based fats, unless these fats are coming from fatty fish. So think of animal-based protein in its most purest form, like chicken, turkey, but also fish, shellfish. When it comes to plant-based protein, there aren't many unprocessed protein sources that are almost pure protein like chicken and fish. Plant-based protein sources are most of the time a packaged deal with fats and carbohydrates. The plant-based protein sources that are good options nevertheless are tofu or other soy products like edamame, and you can even try out some vegan minced meat or vegan chicken pieces if you want. But there's also seitan, which is a protein made out of wheat, which you can find in its whole form or cut into mince or strips. And another amazing plant-based protein source, because of its digestibility and addition in essential amino acids, is a high quality protein powder. Step 2 would be to choose your carbohydrate sources. And these are vegetables, fruits, grains, legumes, potatoes. I would split carbohydrate sources in 2 groups. Number 1 being vegetables and fruits, and number 2 being grains, legumes, and potatoes. Let's start with vegetables. You want vegetables to be the bulk of your meals. Think about half of your plate being vegetables. The absolute minimum of vegetables that you need daily is 250 grams. But I want to highlight the fact that I said absolute minimum. I would strongly suggest to sneak in some vegetables wherever you can and try to opt for at least 300 grams daily. Now let's move on to grains, legumes, or potatoes. In other words, complex carbs. Unless you're very active and do, for example, endurance sports, you don't need a whole lot of these type of carbs per meal. But you don't want to exclude them either, since they are essential to live a healthy and energized life. A good rule of thumb would be to aim for an amount that is the size of your fist, which is around 100 to 150 grams of cooked weight. But if you have a more active lifestyle because you work out a lot, or you have a more active job, or you do other daily activities, then you can opt to go for 1.5 to 2 fists, which is about 150 to 250 grams of cooked weight. Step 3 would be to add fats. It's important to try to choose for more unprocessed fat sources that contain mostly unsaturated fats. If possible, choose fat sources in its more whole form, like avocado, nuts, seeds, and olives. Also, keep in mind that this part of your plate might need to be more managed in terms of portion control if you don't want to overconsume in calories, since even a little bit of fat can give you a significant amount of calories. For example, 100 grams of nuts will give you almost 700 calories. Step 4, and these are the flavor makers. This step is optional but recommended. Herbs and spices are powerful foods that are high in antioxidants. So not only are they key if we want our meals to taste delicious, we also want to add herbs and spices because of health benefits too. Apart from herbs and spices, I also want to mention a few other powerful flavor makers that could be great to use, which are tomato paste, kimchi, sauerkraut, miso paste, vinegar, low salt soy sauce. And here's a little trick. You can add some stock or broth to your cooking to lower the use of oil and butter. And this would add even more flavor. When it comes to portions, obviously a more personalized approach is necessary because we all have different bodies and different goals and different activity patterns that each has its very own macronutrient requirements. In other words, calories, protein, carbs, and fats. So that means in terms of portions, you might need to tweak here and there to make it work. Your portions are linked to your personal calorie requirement. But it doesn't matter if you have 400 calories for a meal or 800 calories for a meal, you can make every meal more well balanced. My recommendation would be to start balancing your meals within these ranges. If you want to know how many protein, carbs, and fats your meals contain, then you can opt to use any free food logging app in which you can enter your ingredients and it can show you what the distribution is.
Now let's build a meal using this 4-step framework. Step 1 was choosing your protein. I'm choosing fish. Step 2 was choosing your carbs, but carbs are divided in 2 groups. So the first thing to pick are our vegetables and our fruits, and that is categorized as step 2A. Now, step 2B was choosing our starchy carbs, so our legumes or our grains or potatoes or everything made out of these products. Step 3 are going to be our fats, and try to stick to fats in its more whole form. And step 4, the final one, was optional, but I would recommend to use some herbs and spices, and that's what we're going to do here as well.
Now that you know the basics on how to build a well-balanced meal, you can get inspired by any recipe and transform it using this 4 steps template to make your meals more well-balanced and suitable for every day. With more well-balanced, I mean that nothing is missing and the nutrients are set in more suitable proportions so nothing is too low. I'm going to give you an example of how to alter a recipe using a recipe out of the Hugh Furley Whittington cookbook. With the naked eye, I can spot what is missing, what will be on the lower side, and what is overflowing. But for the sake of this video, let's draw some numbers, shall we? This recipe has a total per person of 435 calories, 8 grams protein, 58 grams of carbs, of which 250 grams of vegetables, and 19 grams of fats. As you can see, this meal contains mostly carbohydrates and fats. Protein is really on the lower side. Now let's use our 4-step format to optimize it, making it more well-balanced and trying to keep the calories somewhat similar. What is missing? Step 1, protein. An easy way to change this is to just add some chicken or fish, but if you want to keep this meal plant-based, you could opt for tofu and add some lentils. To make place for that, without messing too much with the calories, we could choose to lower the amount of potatoes. I'm choosing to add 130 grams of cod, which is white fish. This recipe gives 250 grams of vegetable per person, so that is great. It is enough, but you can also opt for more if you want. Next up are complex carbs. This recipe has 250 grams of potatoes per person, which could be fine. You might want to alter the amount. I'm going to leave it as is. Step 3 are fats. This recipe tells us to use a significant amount of olive oil. So this recipe is using about 60 mils of olive oil, more or less, for the entire recipe. Since we're trying to stick to the same amount of calories, we need to drop the fats a little bit to make space for protein. For now, I'll change this part of the recipe to less fats coming from oil to 30 mils in total. This means I'm not going to drizzle any oil on top, but I'm only going to use the olive oil for cooking. Step 4 are the flavor makers. This recipe has beautiful herbs and spices, and we're not going to mess with that. Now we've optimized a recipe that will give each individual 454 calories, 31 grams of protein, 57 grams of carbs, of which 250 grams of vegetables, and a total of 10 grams of fats. This is a perfect everyday, healthy, and well-balanced meal. Now that you've learned how to build a well-balanced meal using my 4-step strategy, your next step is to learn how to move more, how to exercise, and how to succeed in your healthy lifestyle journey. And that's why you need to watch this video, where I'll teach you even more beginner basics on how to eat healthy and how to start with exercising so you can maximize your results. Thank you for watching.